Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and good evening to everybody here. I hope you all can hear me. Yes, maybe a thumbs up if you all can hear me. Great. Okay. So, we are actually about this topic, right? Walls to bridges. What are the walls that we build, and what are the bridges that we build? Um, so everyone must be wondering what is this about, right? Anyone, any ideas as to what the possible walls could be or the bridges could be? I'm getting messages in the chat box. Yes, something to do with communication. Yes, okay. Okay. So the topic that we've chosen, it encompasses a lot of things, um, especially, with relation to communication. Hence why we went this tagline of listen with empathy, speak with impact, and connect with purpose, right? Um, First off, we're humans, right? And as such, we are wired for connection, right? These are things that we naturally crave. As humans, we always seek some sort of a connection, Sorry about that, guys. Coming back, yes. So I'm just going to quickly run through what we were talking. So we were talking about walls and bridges, and what are the walls that we're talking about? What are the bridges? And we also spoke about how, as humans, we are wired for connection, right? This is something that we naturally crave. So we have to always keep in mind that we, as humans, we are not always about, oh, I can stay alone. I'm good by myself. I don't need anybody. It's not very natural. We do find many people say statements like that, but it's not a very natural statement to make. Yeah. So most of us, we do crave this, but we just want to know how. How do we do this? Right? The how to part is where we all generally struggle with, right? So, there's this quote that I wanted to share, Isaac Newton cliche, but a very important, quote that we could ask ourselves, right? Or we could even tell ourselves, which is we build too many walls and we don't build enough bridges, right? So, what kind of walls do we build? So wall here could also be a barrier, right? So most of the time when you think of a barrier or a barricade, for me, visually, the image that comes to my mind is, okay, we're traveling somewhere and then I see a block, like a barricade that's put in front of me with yellow and black lines saying like, okay, you can't go here. It's blocked. It's prohibited for you to enter. So that's a barricade, right? So a barrier here is any condition that makes it difficult to make progress or to achieve an objective, right? Anything that is a condition or a situation. So, for example, when you cannot tolerate a person, you just don't like a particular person, maybe the way they talk, the way they make you feel, when you can't tolerate that person, it naturally acts as a barrier towards understanding them. When you don't like somebody, you don't even want to put the effort into understand them, or you don't even want to try with them, right? So this could be a barrier, or in our case, we are calling it a wall, right? Something that's blocking it. So what kind of walls do we put up, or what kind of barriers do we put up for ourselves, to the people around us? So these are some of the walls that we build, right? So these are walls, again, generally in common, these are walls that we build, right? So I know I have put many, I have mainly listed the walls that I find very common in humans in general, right? But of course, you could definitely be having something more, something else that you struggle with, right? So number one is assumptions, right? We, even me, this goes for me as well. Naturally, when you meet somebody, sometimes you say certain things and you just assume that that person should understand it. You're like, oh, okay, I told them, they don't get it. It's not my problem. right? So this is an assumption. This is what's in my head. I gave them the instruction. I told them, look, this is what it is, and okay, this person is anyway slow. No, they'll never get it. So I have a preconceived, assumption, or this is how they are, or they are a bit slow, or they are too fast, whichever, right? So this is, or sometimes people have this thing. I would understand something faster, whereas the person next to me, he or she needs um, a bit more detail, have a bit more clear instructions. But I just think like, oh, I said it once, they should have understood it, right? So just me thinking that, oh, that person should have understood is an assumption, right? So this is a wall that we build. And then, of course, we have the very popular one, which is perceptions, right? Before we even talk to the person, we label them, right? We stereotype them. Oh, this person, of course, no, you already have, before you even know, speak to them or understand them or get to know them, you already have categorized them into something, right? So this is also your perception, how you see it. So this could be a stereotype, or it could even be something that you're biased. Sometimes when I like somebody, I'm naturally biased towards them. I like my sibling, I'm like, oh, he is very good at it, so I'm naturally inclined. That's my perception. So, right, sometimes we call it favorism, playing favorites, right? So then there's also, if you don't really trust somebody, you find it very incredible to kind of trust this person, you find them very unethical, or they just don't go with your values, then again, that's another perception. This is also something that makes it, these are all factors that makes it, that the reason why you put up walls, or barriers that stops you from communicating, right? And of course, we have language differences, right? Now, if you don't understand something that somebody is telling, then of course you're bound to have an issue with that. Yeah. And then we are looking at lack of interest. Sometimes, you're talking to somebody, and you're pouring your heart out, you're telling a lot of things, and this person just seems, very unbothered. They're answering phone calls while you're talking to them, or they're not really looking at you, very disinterested. So this also would, sometimes I would be like, okay, I'm sharing so much to this person, this person's not even looking at me, they're busy on their phone, or they're they're prioritizing other things over what I'm sharing, right? So lack of interest. Also, I will also, not have that interest to share about it, right? So it goes both ways. And of course, we have lack of clarity. A lot of the times when people talk, um, sometimes people are very good at getting a message across, right? It could be a text message, an email, anything. Sometimes people are very vague, and of course, we live in a time where everything is like shortened and abbreviated, right? Very, very common. Like even for me, like the Gen Z now, they have so many terms, and I kind of have to Google my way through things to understand certain abbreviations. So everything is shortened, and sometimes it gets confusing, right? So clarity is of utmost importance, and when you are confused, you are just going to be like, okay, I don't know if this is something that um I can actually understand. And of course, we have jargons, right? So when you say jargon, it's a lot to do with the slang. For example, in Sri Lanka, we talk to, men, when they talk, they will be like, oh, hi, Machan, how are you? So Machan doesn't really have like a meaning. Or if you take the country like the UK, England, they call, they naturally, like when it's a friend, when it's a buddy, they call them mate, right? So this calling people like mate, Machan, these are all like jargon. They're like slangs. So sometimes, if I'm somebody who's not familiar with the language, I might feel like, oh, I don't know what this person is talking about. I don't get their slang, or I don't understand their accent, the way in which they talk. So all of this, I feel like, oh, okay, I don't know if I understand it, so it's better I don't say anything, right? And of course, we have the cultural differences, right? When your culture is different to somebody else, your values, your customs, the way in which you practice something, not just in within people, like even in organizations, right? Even in companies, we see that, sometimes if a specific thing doesn't align with you, like some companies would have the culture of, a lot of free mixing, a lot of like events where you might not, you feel like, okay, I don't know if this is, if this is my cup of tea. I don't know if I'm going to, So you would prefer to, stay away from it then because it doesn't align with your customs or your values, right? So cultural differences could be a lot of things. And of course, we have gender differences. When it's different genders, I'm more comfortable talking to a girl, to my friends, than, let's say I would open up to somebody else. So, that is, of course, there. And of course, I think these last two, fear and self-esteem, I feel like these are some of the biggest barriers or the most common walls that we see in pretty much 99% of people. Yeah. So fear, being scared, being afraid, you have these mental, perceptions like you're like, oh, I'm scared, what will they think of me? They would think that I'm not a confident speaker. I am very bad at communicating. I can't get my message across. This is not something I'm good with. So, before you even talk, before you even give it a chance, your fear, it's clouding your judgment. It's not even letting you think clearly. That is what fear does, right? Just being scared and and fear will automatically impact your self-esteem. It brings down your confidence. It brings a lot of self-doubt. Can I do it? Is this am I don't know, I don't think I'm good enough, this doesn't work for me, or I'm not very fluent in English, I'm not very fluent in this language, people might make fun of me. So many things, right? Some people even have this, when it comes to, let's say in general, some I've seen people where, when they'll be really great public speakers, they can really run an audience, they're very good, their voice modulation, the way in which their art of speak, everything is really good, but they'll be so, conscious of themselves. They're very like body conscious. They'll be like, oh, I'm very like big looking, I'm very large looking, or I look a certain way. I feel ashamed of how I look. So many things. Your self-esteem could really stem from a lot of things. And these are some of the reasons, but that we tend to put up these barriers and these walls saying like, oh, I don't know if I should be, right? So these are some common walls that we see. Yeah. Now, the question, okay, fine. I have these walls. I have these barriers. I know that. Yeah, I know. I know I tend to, stereotype people. Yeah, I know I'm afraid. So why should I talk? What's the big deal? This is who I am. This is how I am. That's how it is nowadays, right? Yeah, I get angry. What's your problem? This is how I am. This is how God created me. We have this very um, how do you say we a lot of the times I could be wrong, but I see it a lot with the generation that we have now, right? It's always like not my monkey, not my circus, not my problem, like why should I let them deal with it? This is always the way. So um see, like we are, I presume that everybody on this conference, I mean, in this call, we are all Muslims, right? So we do have our faith into play. There are reasons which our faith teaches us so much. And it's almost like a manual as to, to live this very like honorable and a very dignified life, right? So just by breaking down these walls, who were the people who actually, were there anyone who had these kind of walls and how did they deal with? I would like to share this example, you know, our prophet, our prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Again, best of example, like I really couldn't think of anyone better, right? So he was somebody, he interacted with his best friend, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and the hypocrites and the Quraysh of the Makkah the same way. It was parallel, it was simultaneous. He didn't put up any walls and, he didn't be like, oh, I don't, he didn't assume things. He always, there was very much of, clear communication that took place, right? It was clear, it was proper, and there was no such thing as, okay, he speaks to one person a certain way because he likes this person, and but he speaks to this person a separate way because he doesn't like this person, right? So he interacted the same way, the ahlak that he had, so your character or your your values, right? So if you really are a person, I mean, there's two ways to go, right? If you're like, oh no, this is who I am, I'm created this way, that is one way to go. Again, it's a choice, right? Everything comes down to your free will and it's a choice. And then there's always the other route where in which you could be like, you know what, like I want people to like talk about me like, oh, this person, their character, the way in which they conduct themselves, if that is what you do, then Of course, now if you have these walls and these barriers, see, we are all a work in progress, right? We are all humans. We are learning. I am learning. We all are in our journey towards being better. Yeah. So if we do have these walls, if you have identified, okay, I have these walls. So how do you break that wall and how do you bridge it? How do you bridge that gap, right? So those are few things that we would be discussing throughout. And like, I really wanted to share this example of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where in which, he would treat his best friend Abu Bakr and the hypocrites the same way. It was parallel. Okay, so this quote. Now, when I was young, this was a quote that I had came across, and this was, I think, sitting in front of my pinboard for quite some time, and it really stuck with me. Right, I feel like it has a message, right, which is work for a cause, not for applause. Live life to express, not to impress. Don't strive to make your presence noticed. Just make your absence felt. Right. I think that's quite important because, nowadays, everything is about seeking validation, right? You seek validation from everybody, especially at a time where I mean, let's face it, there's so many advantages to the fact that we live in a very technologically savvy era. And also, it has its pros and cons, right, in everything. So I think with social media, it's also like, oh, okay, like I posted this story, I posted this thing. How many people have liked it? How many, it's always the numbers, like how many likes, how many people saw it. Oh, and nowadays I feel like people don't even invite you to things like, by themselves verbally. It'll be like, oh, I put up a story, didn't you see it? Like everyone, like it's like, okay, you're just wired to be like, oh, okay, I should just follow that. Everything is about seeking people validation. And I think it's extremely important for us to know that we need to take a step back, right? We all do. We really need to reflect on, okay, is this who I really want to be? Like you need to, I think, really ask yourself that, like, is this a legacy I want to leave behind? I think that really makes you think, right? So why? Because most of the time when you do some work, like I think for the longest time, I had certain ambitions as a child. I was like, okay, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a scientist. It keeps changing. It varies, right? But there was always something along the lines of, okay, if I'm going to do something, I want to do something like a cause, something meaningful, something with purpose, right? It was never about, okay, who's going to give me a pat on the back? Who's going to clap the loudest for me? It's never that. So I feel like naturally when you work for a cause, something it could be like, you teach your child, like let's say you're a mother and you teach your child, you're creating impact. Like you are literally the foundation of that child. That is a cause in itself. So it's like there's so much impact that you could create. You're not doing it for anybody's applause, right? You're just doing it for that cause. So whatever you choose to do, always keep that in mind. A cause is more important than any number of claps you get. And again, bringing back to the point that, um, express yourself, your words, your personality. You don't necessarily have to do that, to impress other people. Oh, I'm wearing this outfit and let's see how many compliments I'm getting. Or, I bought this thing and like, it really is not. I feel like it's very petty. Yeah. So I think, and there's also this really nice thing. I remember reading it somewhere. It says, beautiful things don't ask for attention. That's kind of true, right? Like, I mean, you're beautiful inside and out. You don't really have to seek attention so much. So I think, again, don't constantly, try to show people, oh, look, I'm here, I'm here. Just make sure that when you're not there, someone's going to be like, oh, this person is not here. So, yeah, this is a quote that always stuck with me for a long time. And the reason I chose this quote is I feel like it encompasses a lot of things wherein which, we could reflect from, which brings on to the bridges that we choose to build, right? So I always say this, like God has given us 2 ears and one mouth, right? So there is a reason why we have 2 ears and one mouth to actually listen, right? And not to just listen, but to actually listen with empathy. So what is actually, stopping us? Again, what are the walls or what are the barriers that's stopping us from building this, from listening with empathy. What is stopping us? Um, Number one, like these are again few of the most common barriers that we see, right? You will have your personal barriers, things that you struggle with, to each their own. But these are some common barriers that you come across. Yeah. So number one, the moment somebody is talking, I mean, me again, my parents, like, okay, they say something like, oh, you didn't clean your room, it's all messy. Immediately before I even listen to them in my head, I'm forming a comeback. I'm like, I'm immediately ready to refute that, right? I'm like tit for tat. I'm like, oh no, I was busy doing homework. I didn't have time. I'm immediately thinking of what can I say next. It's always about that. I'm not even necessarily listening to the person. I'm already forming um saying like, oh, you know what, I'm immediately going to say this. This is my comeback. It's a tit for tat, right? This is a barrier. It stops you from listening empathetically. It doesn't even, how can you do that when you're already thinking of what is the next argument you're going to tell? Yeah. And then there's the other barrier, which is, I mean, this is quite common, which is information overload. Sometimes when people talk, they tend to give you a lot of information and you find it really difficult to kind of focus on it, right? You're just like, okay, like they told a lot of things, like, I don't understand what they said. So at a time like that, you could just focus on the central points because that tends to usually be very repetitive. And of course, naturally, even for me, if somebody was to talk way too much, it is going to be a barrier, right? Too much going on. What should I exactly listen to? And then we have the overly critical. Oh, this is, of course, I think if we went to school, if we went to university, if we went to, I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of us, some of us would have done it, some of us were, didn't have done it. We tend to be overly critical of whoever who is talking, right? Especially with our teachers. They come and tell something, you're like, look at how she looks, she's not dressed properly, she's speaking like this, her hair looks like this, her this thing is like this, that. We're so focused on the messenger, like how they look and how they talk and everything. That's not important. Your focus should be on the message, right? So you need, in order for you to listen, you should cut, like filter out. I think it's extremely important for you to filter out the nonsense and for you to focus. Half the issues in life, if you can have that focus, I think that in itself is a huge blessing, right, to be able to do that. So I think we should all tell ourselves to not be overly critical, to not over analyze people. It's good to be a critic. I think criticism is something that is like something important, right? You need to know, but to be overly critical, I think we need to know where to draw the line. Yeah. And of course, the other barrier, very, very, infamous barrier, which is the external noise, right? I mean, it's always while I'm talking to somebody, it's like, oh, I'm getting notifications, devices. So, like, okay, I'm on my phone or I'm on my laptop, I'm with a TV, I'm with an iPad, so much external noise. And sometimes, of course, there's environmental factors too. They're probably having some construction work going on and you actually can't hear. Yeah, I mean, that is a barrier, right? So these are few of the barriers we that stops us from listening with empathy. So how do you overcome these barriers? Is there any tips? Is there any strategies for us to overcome these barriers? So these are few strategies that you could implement, right? So these strategies are mainly for active listening, right? So when you want to actively listen, when you want to focus on something, when you really want to get the most out of it, this is something that you can practice, right? So number one, the reason why it's in red font is really stop. Stop with the internal commentary, right? When somebody is talking to you, stop judging them, stop trying to, form a comeback with for them, in your, oh, who is she to come and tell me I'm doing this or I did all this? It's always reasons and excuses. So I think it's really important for you to actively listen, to stop with all the internal commentary, to clutter, to completely like declutter everything in order for you to listen. And of course, there is when you say listen with empathy, empathy in itself is, a lot of the most commonly used thing is, oh, put yourself in that person's shoes, right? That is what, so it's simply put, like, just try to imagine how you would feel in that particular circumstance or in that particular situation. I think that is really important, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of acknowledgement, they don't really even want a solution. It's more like, okay, this person is listening to me. I was able to share this, or, this person's such an amazing listener. That in itself is such a beautiful quality to have, to be able to talk to somebody and they nod at the right places, they say the right things. It's like a huge burden is lifted off your shoulders. So I think it's really important for you to look, for you to really see for things that you might not necessarily find out verbally. They are known as the non-verbal cues, or in their body language. Now they'll be saying something, saying, "Yeah, yeah, I'm okay." So verbally they are saying, "I'm fine, I'm okay." But when you look at their eyes, or the way in which they are carrying themselves, you can tell that no, something's not right. They look sad, something's upsetting them. So I think that's also very there's a way in which you can identify, right? And of course, listening again, not randomly just hearing, actually paying attention to all the details, overall understanding. I think that is extremely important, to actually listen, right? Focus on the minute details. It really shows somebody that, as a person, if I know, oh, someone's actually listening to me, I would have this immense respect for that person. Like, oh wow, like this person actually listens to what I'm saying, even the nitty gritty, even the minute details. So it really, really uh, changes what I feel about them. They don't just randomly, like, sometimes when I'm talking, they'll bring up something that I've said before, and I'm like, wow, like this person actually listens to me. It really warms my heart. So I think it's a beautiful thing to do, and not a lot of people can do that. But if we are struggling with it, these are things that we can practice, right? And of course, sometimes we are human. We can get carried away. We do have our own thought process also going on. You will have commitments that you have at home, at school, at work, whichever situation you're in. At a time like that, one thing that you could do is to repeat back what they told. We do paraphrasing, right? When you type out documents, when you do written work, we do paraphrasing, right? So the same way, when somebody is talking and you lost track of what they're saying, you could always be like, I beg your pardon, or you could repeat something where they left off, so that they would, kind of repeat themselves, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what they were like speaking about, right? So that is something that we could practice, right? So I think it's extremely, extremely important, to be empathetic, for us to understand the situation. Because end of the day, it all comes down to like how understanding you are, how empathetic you are. So in order for you to do that, I think it's extremely important. Now, this is something that my mom taught me when I was quite young, and this really, really helped me as a person growing up. This dua, you all can have a look at it. I hope everybody can see. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazni wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasli wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhli wa a'udhu bika min ghalabati ad-daini wa kahri rijal. So, this dua is a very wholesome dua. It You can ask Allah for help, if you struggle with worry, with grief, just being a lazy person, or you seek protection of any sort. Some people, we tend to get a little bit jealous, we tend to be selfish. All of these are factors wherein which, it could affect us. Like, so I know personally, I have always struggled with this, right? Sometimes when you're young, you go through certain things and you're like, oh no, I want to be a better person. I really do. But, unfortunately, this is not something that is easy. You look at certain things, you tend to always try to uh, struggle with this. So at a time like that, I feel like this is something that really helps, with relation to all kinds of protection, right? So from, even if, people are trying to put you down and bully you and, be like, oh, you're not this, you're not that. So try to, consistently practice this, and I'm sure it's going to make an impact. Now, coming back to, now, we did say that we have 2 ears and one mouth, right? So it's 2 ears and one mouth. So there is a reason why, like we already spoke about, why we have 2 ears. So the reason we spoke about this is that, when you have one mouth, we we always say this, right? First impression lasts a really, really long time, right? So a lot of the time people say, dress the part, look the part, all of that. But it's also what you say, right? What you say for the first time. So you have one mouth. So please, like, don't unnecessary topics, talking and repetitive again and again and again. Speak with impact, right? That is what we need to focus on. So again, like how we declutter our thoughts, I think it's really important for us to just get to the point and not to, beat around the bush. So how do we do this? How can we actually speak with impact? So this is, focus on the issue, not the person. Again, we spoke about this before as well. When you're talking to somebody, don't, like, this person is a very lazy person. So I have to, tell this person at least like 20, 50 times, right? So you address the issue clear and well, and that's about it. Now you've done your part with clarity, without mumbling. You've clearly given the message, or if you're typing out a message, you've clearly mentioned it. That's about it, right? So you focused on the issue and not necessarily the person, right? And of course, this goes without saying, guys, be genuine, right? Be genuine with your message. Don't don't be unethical. Don't have, bad intentions, or a lot of us, we say things, we don't necessarily mean it, but we just say it like, oh, okay, I'm just saying this so that she will get off my back. No, be genuine. Like, again, our Prophet Muhammad comes into play, right? Your ahlak goes a long way, your character. So it speaks volumes. When people see you, when you say something, they're like, oh, she's so genuine the way she talks. She's not fake. She doesn't have any filters on. She's what you see is what you get. And she speaks the same to everyone. Right now, we have this problem where we have different, tones and different voices for each person. When it's somebody we like, we're very soft and subtle and nice to them, right? But when it's somebody we can't stand, we're shouting, and the words that we use, all of that, we're like perfect to the children outside. We're like this perfect role model for them. But for the children inside the house, we are like a different, completely different version. And they're like, you're good with everybody except us. Same thing for our spouses, for our parents, all of that. I remember, I am also guilty of this, right? Again, we are all work in progress. This is for me as well. So I think integrity is very important. Be genuine. You don't have to uh, practice what you preach. I think that's really important, right? You tell somebody something, you have to do it. So please do walk the talk. And of course, don't be detached. When you're talking to somebody, don't look like your mind is somewhere else, but your mouth is saying something. Both have to be in line. So you have to look at your body language, the way in which you see that person, how you speak, all of that goes a long way, right? And of course, being flexible, diversity. What you mean by diversity here is that we're like, oh, okay, she's Muslim, so I can talk to her like that. She's not Muslim, no. She's like this, no. So that's really wrong. I mean, we are Muslims means again we have to do more dawah. We have to be a better example, right? So don't be like, oh, she's from this faith, or she's of this skin tone, or she's of this caliber, or she's from this area, she's from this region or this part of the world. That's really wrong, and it shouldn't impact the way in which you speak, right? You should be the same, rich or poor, no matter what their background is. Diversity is extremely important, and it's not just only for these people I'll talk like this and not for the rest. And of course, having a very affirmative tone. I think this is extremely important. Be positive. Our prophet is a very positive person. A lot of the times it's always negative now, right? Oh, I don't know if I can do this. What if this happens? What if that happens, right? So I think just starting by thinking positive, no, things will go. Inshallah, Allah is there. Just having that tone in itself is going to create such a big impact, right? And I think it's really like end of the day, even me, I'm like doing this talk for you guys today. After you all leave this, I would just like for you all to at least go with just one message, anything. It could even be one point that I shared today. And that is more than enough for me. So I think it's really important for you to know that, when people leave the room, they leave with an impact. And a lot of the times people have this fear and they're like, oh, I don't know if, I'm very nervous. I have these ideas, I'm really good at it. I can put presentations together. But when I look at that person, I just get stuck. My mind goes blank. I don't know how to talk. I don't know what to do so many times. So a lot of the times when I when I work with youngsters, especially university students, they're always like, oh, I practice so much at home, but then when I come, I'm just blank. I'm just blank. I don't know what to say. And honestly, like we've all been there, and this is something that has helped me immensely, which is this particular dua by Musa alayhi salam. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli rabbi zidni ilma warzuqni fahma rabbi yassir wa la tuassir wa tammim bil khairi wa bika nasta'in. So as we all know, like Musa alayhi salam was a person, he actually he had stammering issues. He was not a very confident speaker. Most of the time when they go and do da'wah, when they reach, it's always, he always gets his brother Harun alayhi salam to talk. He was a gifted speaker, right? So he would always be like, oh, you go and talk, you pass the message. He would always take a step back, right? And this is a dua that he made. He literally asks Allah, oh my Lord, open for me my chest, grant me self confidence, contentment, and boldness, and ease my task for me, and make loose the knot from my tongue. Remove the incorrectness from my speech so that they understand my speech. I think this is extremely important, right? Because it's like you're literally asking Allah to remove the knots from your tongue, right? To have that clarity, to have that confidence, to give that clear speech. So if you're somebody who does, you like to talk, you like to present, but something is stopping you. It could be fear, low confidence, whatever it is. Like I would highly recommend you, like practicing this dua, memorizing it, and not just, some people, we have this habit, right? Like we memorize all these duas, we go to our madrasas, our classes, our hazrats and our alims. Even with the Quran, like, we recite it, but do we really understand it? Do we ever really ponder over it? I think it's extremely important for us to ponder over it, to actually look at the meaning, to understand what it means. And because when you understand and when you recite it, it really changes the way you feel about that dua, right? So I think we can all, for me and for us, for you guys, this is something that we should strive to do, and it really does help. Like for me, even after everything, not just speech, any exam, any anything, I would always recite this dua, right? Okay, finally, connecting with purpose, right? So we spoke about, listening with empathy. We spoke about speaking with impact, and then finally we are coming to connecting with purpose, right? So when you say this, simply put, when you say you'll do something, do it. Have integrity with yourself. A lot of the times people will be like, oh, I am a person like this, I will come, I will do this, I will do that. But their actions, they don't really align with what they speak. And that is what people want to see, right? So just like a bridge that has integrity, it can naturally support itself, right? Because when you have integrity by yourself, when you have confidence in yourself, and when you trust yourself, it's going to show. It's naturally going to show with the people that you want to connect with the people that you talk to. It's a purpose behind it. It's not random. It's not just for, oh, let me see what works. There's a genuine purpose behind it. And for you to have that confidence, see, I can't expect somebody else to trust me when I have a problem trusting myself. If I don't have the confidence to wake up for Fajr and pray on time, how can I be like, oh, this person, like I itself don't know if I can do it. How can I wake this person? So I'm not trusting myself. So I think it's extremely important for me to just be like, no, I can do this. I will practice. And for me to not just say it, I need to walk the talk. I need to practice what I preach. I think that's extremely important. Before I advise a child, like, oh, pray 5 times on time, do it. Am I doing it? I think that is really important, because the child, more than the advice I tell, they'll be like, is my mama doing it? She is not doing it, but she's coming and advising me. So I think, you really need to, really align with your speech, and it really sets you apart, right? So our prophet, like before he became a prophet at 40, people called him, you're a Sadiq, Al Amir, like he's the trustworthy one, he's the honest one. People loved doing business with him because of his integrity, right? His honesty that always shines through. So I think naturally, when you have that trait, it's very easy for you to network with people, for you to connect with people, because you have a purpose. You are known for it, and people can always see that, and you're naturally going to attract people towards you. It's just a quality that you have simply because you're somebody who has integrity. So I think it's really important for us. to strive for purpose and for productivity, to have a purpose, to have a clear picture as to what am I doing here, what is the legacy I'm leaving behind, how do I use my time, what am I doing, am I just idling around? I think that's extremely important. And in order, and before, I just would like to leave this with you all. We are coming to an end. I would like to leave you all with this hadith which I saw. I um i have to thank brother for this brother Rizek for sharing this with me, which is a believer who is strong is better and dearer to Allah than the weak believer, but there is goodness in both of them. Be keen on what benefits you and seek help from Allah and do not give up. If anything afflicts you, do not say, if I had done such and such things, such and such would have happened. But say, Allah decrees, and what He wills, He does. For the utterance, if I had, provides an opening for the deeds of the devil. So, a lot of the times people tell us, a lot of old people would tell us, don't say what if, don't say what if. What if comes from shaitan. That is true. What if stems from shaitan. A lot of the times they're like, oh, if I went to university, I would have been, like this. If I did this, I would have been here. I wasn't given this opportunity. If not, I would be here, there, all of that. So you need to first cut it short and to know, okay, no, like there is a reason why certain things happen. You need to really believe in that. And a lot of the times you could always control yourself with how you react to a situation, right? Most of the time we get so worked up and, we have these assumptions in our head. And, according to the ulama, which is the majority of the scholars, right? I'm talking our scholars, like Imam Shafi, Imam Hanafi, Imam Hanbali, Imam Malik, right? They say that, there are four levels of reaction when one is struck with a calamity or a disaster, like a situation. And the lowest stage, the lowest category, they are the ones who will be like, when a trial afflicts him, when something touches, they'll be very angry, and be like, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? They always play this role of a victim. This shows that they have a very weak iman. They really need to work on their iman. And then we have the second reaction. This person will be patient, but he will be a bit sad and worried, like, okay, this happened, what to do, right? Then we have the third stage. Not only will this person be patient, but he'll also be content with the qadr of Allah. They'll be like, okay, this happened, okay, Allah's plan, right? And then we have the fourth level, which is the highest level. This person would not just be patient, not just be content, they will actually say Alhamdulillah and thank Allah for this calamity that happened to them. So you have to ask yourself, which level of reaction do I practice? So when somebody yells at me, when somebody, tells me something, when somebody bullies me, I want to defend myself. Which stage do you practice? Are you at the lowest stage? Do you constantly question yourself, asking, why me? Why does this happen to me? Or are you patient but still worried? Or are you patient and content? Or are you patient, content, and are you also saying Alhamdulillah and thanking Allah for that? Why? Because you feel like everything is a lesson, good or bad, Alhamdulillah. Right? So I think being content, striving for purpose and productivity is extremely important, and it's really going to change the way in which we think. So, guys, that's about it. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for taking the time off to actually come and to be a part of this today. If you all have any questions and anything, you all can always hey guys, Jazakallah khair for all the positive. I'm looking at the comments and you are very kind. Jazakallah khair means a lot. Please keep me in your precious duas as well. And Jazakallah khair to the organization Ilm Book. They were very helpful for giving this platform and giving this particular topic as well. Yeah. So okay then, Jazakallah khair.